My fiancé's friends joked that she had a backup fiancé if I messed up. I laughed. Smart. Then I walked over to the backup, handed him the $100 engagement ring, and said, "Tag in, buddy. She's all yours." The silence in the room was deafening. I, 33, and I was, or maybe should say, I had been engaged to Jenna. 30, 4 years together, living in my 2-bedroom loft in Brooklyn. Only my name was on the lease for the past year and a half. 6 months ago, we got engaged. The ring itself was a running joke between USA, simple, hammered, sterling silver band with a single cubic zirconia we'd spotted at a local artisan fair upstate. Beautifully made, perfect for us. Inexpensive enough that she insisted it be our engagement ring until our 5-year anniversary, when we'd upgrade to something real. I thought it was charming, practical, thoughtful, foolish me. That night was our official engagement parties. Just close friends and family, 15 people crammed into my loft. Jazz and city lights in the background. Jenna was radiant, glowing like the centerpiece of some romantic movie scene, yet the energy in the room felt off. Every time I approached, she seemed to vanish, disappearing into little clusters of whispering friends, especially her 2 closest friends. Qley and Tara, glasses of champagne in hand, giggling. Evan, her longtime college buddy, who'd recently become a regular presence in her life, practically hovered around her like a shadow. I'd voiced my suspicions before. "It's nothing. He's like a brother to me," she'd insisted, flashing that small, unconvincing smile that didn't reach her eyes. Opening gifts was supposed to be light-hearted, nice blender. Some towels, but tension hummed beneath every laugh. Then Qley, tipsy and emboldened by 3 glasses of Prosecco, raised her own in a toast. "To Jenna. Seriously, she's the smartest woman I know." The room cheered, but then she tilted her head, eyes sparkling with mischief, and added, "And she's so smart, she even has a backup plan, right, Evan?" The inhale of 15 people simultaneously caught in that moment sounded deafening. I looked at Jenna, her face flushed crimson, but not at me. Her gaze lingered on Evan, that same infuriating, coy smile on her lips. Evan smirked back, raising his glass. My stomach sank, a premonition of every red flag over the past 6 months lining up in perfect, mocking order. Late nights, she claimed, were girls' nights, but GPS locations said otherwise. Phone flips whenever I approached, lunches that stretched into 3-hour marathons, and the wedding venue discussions she quietly shelved. They were all waiting, watching for my reaction. I laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that sounded like it belonged to someone else. "Qley, brilliant. Honestly, Jenna, I'm impressed. A contingency plan. That's just smart risk management. Everyone should have a plan B." I stood, heart hammering, and crossed the room to the coat rack. In the inner pocket of my jacket was the little velvet box, the ring I had taken off her finger earlier to clean for the party. I stopped in front of Evan, opened his hand, and dropped it in. "Tag in, buddy. She's all yours." The silence was unbearable. Qley's mouth hung open. Jenna's color drained, her smile vanished. "Party's over, everyone. Thanks for coming. Please leave," I said, projecting calm authority over the tension. Jenna shrieked, "It's a joke." A stupid joke, but her voice trembled, betraying panic. I looked her in the eye, voice steady. "Was it a joke when you were at his apartment last weekend instead of with me?" Evan's expression shifted to wide-eyed disbelief. It was the moment the facade cracked. The rest of the guests shuffled awkwardly toward the door, murmuring excuses, avoiding eye contact. I held the door open for them. By the time the apartment was empty, the tension had shifted into something heavier, more permanent. I locked the deadbolt, secured the chain, and sank into the quiet that had been missing for months. The ring box sat on the table, a silent monument to clarity and choice. Best $120 I ever spent. The next few hours blurred into a strange mix of adrenaline and disbelief. My phone buzzed, relentlessly texts, missed calls, notifications from friends who had stayed behind, even a message from Jenna's mum, Helen. I didn't read any of them, not a single one. I just sat in the living room, the city lights spilling across my hardwood floors, listening to the quiet. For the first time in months, it felt calm. But that calm was deceptive, because I knew the storm wasn't over about 10 minutes later. A pounding at the door shattered the fragile peace. I peeked through the peephole. Jenna, Evan, Qley, and Tara assembled like some ill-fated comedy of errors. They were yelling, drunk on entitlement, oblivious to social boundaries. "Carter, open this door. You're insane. You embarrass Jenna," Qley shrieked. "Let us talk," Tara added, waving a glass of champagne. I put on my noise-cancelling headphones and fired up a new game, letting their shouts blend into digital explosions. 20 minutes later, silence fell except for muffled, panicked whispers outside. I peeked again. They were gone. The police arrived shortly after, lights flashing through the loft windows. Evan and the backup fiancé didn't stick around. To face the consequences, they bolted as soon as they realized law enforcement was involved. The texts that followed over the next 24 hours were relentless. Textbook example of gaslighting. Jenna had sent over 80 texts, 15 missed calls, each one dripping with manipulation. "You humiliated me. You drove me to him. You're throwing away for years. My mum is horrified. How could you do this? And the cherry on top, he's just a friend. You're insane." I didn't respond. Instead, I methodically blocked every single one. Jenna, Evan, Qley, Tara, even Helen's texts that tried to guilt me over the chair. My only reply was silence. Then came the physical logistics retrieving my apartment. From the aftermath of the engagement party, 14 boxes of Jenna's belongings lined the hallway. Shoes, clothes, toiletries, keepsakes, little notes I had written her over the years. My apartment, once a shared space, had become a battlefield. I spent hours packing, separating gifts from personal items, cataloging everything meticulously. The furniture was the tricky part. A large antique vanity from her aunt, a bookshelf, and the $700 ergonomic chair I had bought for her WFH setup. She had never paid me back for the chair, despite promises. Around 4 p.m., round 2 of the confrontation began. Jenna pounded on the door again, solo this time. I opened the peephole to see her storming like a hurricane, face red with fury. "Carter, let me in. This isn't fair," she screamed. I opened the door slightly, chain still in place. "No, Jenna, this is my apartment. You're a guest, not a resident. You're not welcome anymore." She froze, disbelief cracking her features. "Guest? I've lived here 2 years." I shook my head, voice calm but firm. "No, you were a guest. And now, everything you own is packed and ready for pickup. The chair. As soon as you pay the $700 you promised, it's yours." Her jaw dropped. She sputtered, "You're stealing from me." "No," I replied evenly. "I'm enforcing a boundary. You tried to make my home unlivable after I wouldn't play along with your joke. That chair is mine until reimbursed. The rest, pick it up whenever." She stormed off, fuming, while I secured the apartment again. It cost me $280 for a locksmith and $350 for a lawyer consultation. But the apartment and my peace of mind was finally mine to reclaim. 2 weeks later, the saga reached its absurd crescendo. The police visited to supervise a civil standby so she could retrieve her property. Trip by trip, the boxes disappeared, silence stretching unbearably between each handoff. Evan, who had been smugged and smirking at the engagement party, glared at me with impotent rage. When offered the chance to claim the chair, he balked. "It's not worth the trouble," he muttered, storming off. Even the backup fiancé folded under real risk, disappearing from the equation as soon as consequences materialized. My lawyer's cease and desist letters worked like magic. Certified mail, signed by all 3 recipients, Jenna, Evan. Qley instantly silenced the campaign of harassment and false reports to my landlord. My email to the corporate office, complete with the C&D letter attached, closed the case of the bogus complaints. For the first time, I could breathe without fear of retaliation. The coven had scattered. The backup had bailed. And Jenna, she was back at her parents' house, nursing bruised pride and an ergonomic chair paid for by her mum. Weeks passed, and the city outside my windows carried on, oblivious to the 4-year storm that had erupted and burned itself out in my apartment. Finally, there was quiet, real quiet. My loft smelled like the faint hint of leftover champagne from that disastrous party, but it was peaceful. No texts, no pounding, no whispering conspiracies. Just me, a clean apartment, and the city lights flickering over the hardwood floors. I sat in the ergonomic chair, fully mine now, thanks to a Venmo payment from Helen, and allowed myself to exhale fully for the first time in months. Occasionally, I got updates from mutual friends, some apologizing for not seeing the red flags sooner. "Carter, we didn't realize how manipulative Jenna and her crew were. You did what you had to do." Others, less tactful, asked if I'd ever consider giving her another chance. I smiled faintly, the thought as absurd as the chaos that had unfolded. No, never, for years. 1,000 little compromises, and in the end, a joke about a backup fiancé revealed the real truth. She was auditioning Plan B all along, and I was tired of being an audition. Even the legal aftermath became a strange sort of closure. The lawyer's letter had created an airtight paper trail, and when I sent the documentation to my landlord, confirming the harassment campaign and false reports, the corporate office finally recognized that all accusations were baseless. My landlord personally called to apologize, relieved that the threat to my tenancy had been a fabrication. The ordeal had cost me $630 in total, between the lawyer and locksmith, but emotionally, the price had been higher yet, so much lighter now that boundaries were set and enforced. Jenna's mother, Helen, eventually called not to argue or guilt me, but to explain Jenna's current situation, struggling with freelance work, coping with being back at her parents' house, and, oddly enough, grateful for the ergonomic chair that had somehow survived the chaos. I gave her a simple, firm explanation. "I'm keeping the chair because I paid for it, and it was never repaid." That's it. Helen sent the Venmo payment immediately. An hour later, I watched from the window as a battered sedan pulled up. Jenna grabbed the chair, and she and her entourage disappeared into the city traffic. No drama, no lingering grudges, just the finality of closure. The lessons lingered longer than the chaos. I learned that enforcing boundaries is not cruelty itself. I learned that some people only value you when it's convenient, and that laughter and jokes can sometimes mask manipulation and betrayal. And most importantly, I learned that peace is priceless, even if it costs a few $100 and a small $120 ring I tossed into a donation bin without a second thought. It wasn't sentimental anymore, it was a symbol of survival, not love. Now, I sit here, a single man in my apartment, feeling lighter, clearer, and unexpectedly calm. For years, one engagement, multiple betrayals, and countless lessons later, I finally understand what it means to enforce a boundary, to reclaim your space both physically and emotionally. I'm not a hero. I'm not even a badass. I'm just a guy who chose clarity over chaos, honesty over manipulation, and peace over drama. And for once, that's enough. The city hums around me, my apartment is mine, and the only ring left in my life is a reminder that some battles are worth fighting not for love, but for yourself. The $100 ring is gone. Donated, hopefully. It finds someone who deserves it more than I ever did. And as for Jenna, Evan, Qley, and Tara, the covens scattered. The backup bled out under the weight of accountability, and the princess returned home minus pride, plus life lessons she may never fully understand. For me, the aftermath is quiet, calm, and mine. That's the ending I didn't ask for, but the one I desperately needed.